Afternoon class. So we're going to move on in graphing. We're going to cover a little bit of different stuff today. Still not going to really get into any graphing per se. We're just going to take it really the next step farther, and we're going to talk about one of the forms that you use for graphing. And then we're also going to talk about some of the parts and what exactly they mean. So these notes are going to be called Graphing 2, and the objective is still that students will be able to determine the slope, the y-intercept, and then graph linear equations using a table with at least 80% accuracy on their 10-question assignment. So we look at the formulas. First thing you need to know is slope-intercept form, which is this right here. Y equals mx plus b. First thing you need to recognize is m, this part right here, is what we call the slope. And you need to recognize that b right here is what we call the y-intercept. Okay? So with that being the case, two definitions for you that you're required to get written down are slope and intercept. I want you guys to get the definitions for those. Okay? So you got slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. So for these examples today, I'm not going to ask you to graph. I'm just going to ask you, we only actually have two examples, so I'm just going to ask you to find the slope, the y-intercept, and then I want you guys to fill in the table. Okay? So our slope. We know that based on what we saw just a minute ago, that the slope is m in the equation y equals mx plus b. So I have x and I got x, I got y and I got y, which means my m is what's multiplying the x. So my slope is going to be -2. My y-intercept, okay? Now this is something that I'm going to require that you actually do slightly different, okay? My y-intercept is at, I can get this thing to work, it's at -4, or excuse me, +4, okay? Because I have +4 here and it's b, so my y-intercept is at 4, so my y-intercept is going to be the point 0, 4, because anytime the graph crosses the y-axis, your x value will always be 0. Okay? And you can expect that there is going to be a question on this on a quiz that's going to ask you about the y-intercept. For example, it could say the x value of the y-intercept is always going to be equal to what? Okay? And you're going to need to know that. So it's going to be the point 0.04. All right? So now you're expected to fill in the xy table. Well, one of your x values you already have. It's right here. So I could put 0.4 in for my x values. Okay? And then let's just go ahead and pick some numbers. So I'm going to say -1, I'm going to say 1, and I'm going to say 2. And now we're going to plug them in and find the y values. So y equals -2 times -1 plus 4. This is -2 times -1 is 2 plus 4. And that says that y equals 6. The next one, you got y equals -2 times 1 plus 4. That gives you -2 plus 4, which is going to give you y equals 2. And then the last one is y equals -2 times 2 plus 4. This is y equals -2 times 2 is going to be, -4 plus 4 and then you get y equals 0. Okay, so for these problems, you're going to find the slope, which we know it's going to be m. You're going to find the y-intercept, which in this case was b, and it's 4. And then you're going to pick x values, and you're going to find the corresponding y value to fill in the table. Okay? Next example, example number 2. And we're looking to do the exact same thing. Identify the slope, the y-intercept, and then fill in the table. Okay? So my slope, again, is going to be m. And m is going to be negative 1/2. Because remember, it's y equals mx plus b. So when I write this above, the m is always the term, the coefficient is what it's called, of x. So it's the number in front of x. So in this case, it's negative 1/2. My y-intercept is b. Sorry, let me actually rewrite that as y-intercept. The y-intercept is going to be b, which is at negative 1, because this is plus b. So since I have minus 1, it's going to be negative 1. So that gives me the point 0, negative 1. So again, I can just use that as one of my x, y coordinates. Now this time, let's say I chose the number 3. And I chose the number 2 and negative 2. Okay? So, you have y equals 3. Sorry. Y equals negative 1/2 times 3 minus 1. This is y equals. In order to multiply a whole number and a fraction, I have to put it over 1. Multiply straight across. Negative 1 times 3 is negative 3 over 2 times 1 is 2 minus 1. So now I'm adding a fraction and a whole number, so I have to make the whole number a fraction. And then I have to get a common denominator, which means I'm going to multiply by 2 over 2. So I get y equals negative 3/2 minus 2 over 2. And that's going to give me that y equals negative 5 over 2. Okay? Now, that was if we chose 3. But now we're going to try to remember what I talked about when we were doing the tables originally. And that is that when you have a fraction, you want to choose multiples of the denominator so that I can get rid of the fraction. So I chose 2, and I get y equals negative 1/2 times 2 minus 1. Put this over 1 and multiply straight across. That's going to be negative 2 over 2 minus 1. That's going to be negative 1 minus 1, which is going to give me y equals negative 2. So you notice how this time I don't have a fraction in my y value. Okay? That's why, again, we choose multiples of negative 2. Okay? So, now I'm going to do the next one, which is y equals negative 1/2 times negative 2 minus 1. Again, put it over 1, multiply straight across. This is going to give you 2 over 2 this time, minus 1, which is going to be 1 minus 1, which is going to give you y equals 0. Okay? Real quick, if this is what we call our y-intercept, I would like somebody tomorrow when you come into class to tell me what this would be called, negative 2 comma 0. Okay? Alright, so those are our 2 examples for today. Here is your warm-up for today. Y equals 3x minus 2. Remember to do these on your warm-up paper, or you could do them on a separate sheet of paper, on your notes, and then you can just transfer them over to your warm-up tomorrow morning when you come in. But you're going to do the same 3 things. You're going to identify the slope, identify the y-intercept, and then you're going to fill in the table. And you can actually skip the and then graph part, because we're not going to do that quite yet. Okay? So I want you to do the slope, the y-intercept, and then I want you to fill in the tables. So the first one is y equals 3x minus 2. The second one is y equals 1/3 x plus 2. Okay? Make sure you have these done when you come into class so that we can get through the warm-up quickly tomorrow. Also remember, you have to have your steps if you want credit. And then the last thing is make sure you have those 2 definitions filled out as well. All right, guys, have a great night, and we will see you tomorrow. Remember, it's a short day tomorrow.